So hi, I'm Dr. Eric Balkavage, and this is the first edition of the Thyroid Answers podcast. I'm joined by my partner in the podcast, Dr. Erica Riggleman. Hello, Erica. How are you?
Hi, good.
Dr. Erica and I are both functional medicine doctors. We specialize in helping people with hypothyroid conditions. We both have been in practice for a number of years helping people recover from chronic thyroid conditions. We decided to start the podcast as a result of many of our patients having questions about thyroid physiology. Questions like, why do I still have thyroid symptoms when my labs are normal? Or I'm on thyroid medication and my doctor says that everything's great, but I still have hypothyroid symptoms. Why would I still have hypothyroid symptoms when I'm on medication? Or maybe they have hypothyroid symptoms and their TSH is really low and they've asked their doctor, do I have a thyroid condition because I have all those symptoms? And their doctor says, nope, you're actually more hyperthyroid than hypothyroid, so it must be something else. So there's lots of questions that both Dr. Erica and I have to answer on a regular basis with our patients. And we just thought it would be an easier thing to do to start a podcast, start answering some of those questions. Start talking about some of the recent research that is coming out about thyroid physiology. It's kind of taking our old model of thyroid physiology and turning it on its head. And then we can start answering some of the questions from our audience over time. And in the future, we hope to get some other guests on and talk to them about their link to thyroid physiology or their level of expertise in helping us understand and helping you, the listeners, understand a little bit more about thyroid physiology. So what I'd like to do first is just introduce Dr. Erica Riggleman, let her tell us a little bit about herself, and then I think we'll reverse the roles, and then we'll get into a little bit about our first topic today. So you want to give us a little information about yourself?
Absolutely. Hi, everybody. I'm Dr. Erica Riggleman, like he had said. I practice in Winchester, Virginia with my husband. We're both chiropractors. I do most of the functional medicine in our office and specialize more in metabolic thyroid issues, IBS, chronic fatigue. And the crazy thing is that most of the time all that stuff is linked. There is usually an underlying metabolic problem. Besides just my practice, I'm a very active person. I love to cook. And when it comes to cooking for your thyroid, there's a lot of special diets out there that people like to follow. So I'm always willing to give food tips, help people transition into a more paleo type of gluten-free, dairy-free diet, and coach my patients through that.
So from a perspective of taking care of hypothyroid patients in your practice, what do you think is the biggest question that your patients ask?
It's frustration of what really is wrong with me, because oftentimes they don't get the answers. Even when they are told that they're hypothyroid, they don't completely understand why they develop that, or why do I have all these other symptoms than just my thyroid? Why is my skin dry? Why is my hair falling out? Why am I constipated? Why do I have hormonal shifts? And I don't think a lot of doctors link the fact that there's reasons why that they're having all that, and a lot of it's due to their thyroid, or maybe those issues were causing a thyroid problem in the first place. So a lot of it's just frustration of asking what really is wrong with me, or is it really in my head, which is often what they're told. And it's kind of a sad model that's out there for them.
Right. So trying to help people want to find what the root cause is, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So if people want to find you after this podcast or as they watch the podcast, where can they go to find your information?
You can find me on Facebook at Brain and Body Health Center. You can find us at Dr. Erica, I think it's Dr. Evan and Erica on Instagram. You can go to brainandbodyhealthcenter.com for our actual website, and there's information on how to get a hold of our office. From there, we do stuff obviously in the office as well as long distance as well, Skype-wise.
Okay. And what was the main focus for you in getting involved with hypothyroid cases? Was there any one particular driver that got you interested in thyroid conditions?
Not necessarily one driver. It was more of a search to help more people, because it started out in more of a pain model, and as the pain patients came in, they often started asking more about how can I lose weight, or how can I do this. And as we started diving deeper into more metabolic testing, we found that a lot of them have underlying thyroid problems, even people who have pain. It may be an underlying thyroid issue as well. So it kind of was a drive to get my patients better outcomes. The cases that weren't responding to normal treatments, it was more of a question of why aren't they getting better? And that deep dive led me down a rabbit hole, and it keeps going and going and going. So the learning never ends when it comes to the research coming out for thyroid issues.
Right. And so for a lot of the functional medicine docs, you find that that take care of people with thyroid issues, you find out that many of them themselves have thyroid issues, and I'm one of those, right? So one of the things that got me involved with helping people with thyroid conditions was the fact that my family members started having thyroid problems, and after a period of time, we found out that their thyroid issue was really a Hashimoto's issue. Yep. And now I think, including myself, we probably at least 3 or 4 of the family members have Hashimoto's. So it is a thing that you can see running in families, and it's an extremely common thing in today's world. So that was one of the things that drove me to really become more interested in it when my own family members started having thyroid conditions and being mismanaged for their thyroid condition, being treated as if it was just hypothyroidism, when in reality, as you and I both know, the primary cause of hypothyroidism in the U.S. is Hashimoto's, which is an autoimmune condition, which technically is an immune problem and not necessarily a thyroid-specific problem. But I've been I'll introduce myself a little bit. I've been in private practice for about a little over 20 years now, and made the transition to a functional medicine practice probably 12 or 13 years ago. And that drive actually was because of a family member who was diagnosed as hypothyroid. And I wanted to help her out and didn't want her to have her thyroid removed and a number of other conditions and problems that she had. So I had to dig into the chemistry to figure it out. And the more I learned and started looking at my patient base, I realized there's quite a big portion of my patient base that has known thyroid problems and probably being mismanaged, and a whole bunch of people that were tired, fatigued, had high blood pressure, high cholesterol, had weight gain, and didn't realize that they had thyroid condition. And so that led me on my journey to really dive in. And that led me probably earlier this year to start the Thyroid Thursday videos that I do on YouTube. And now we're starting a website called the Thyroid Problems Doctor website, or thyroiddoctors.com, which is a website that will be totally focused on helping people who have thyroid problems and answering their questions. And this podcast will be on there as well. And so if you have an interest in finding me after you watch this, you can go to the Thyroid Problems Doctor website. You can go to Chronic Condition Recovery Center.com is my main practice website. Facebook, it's Chronic Conditions Recovery Center as well. I don't think I have I have Twitter, and I have what's the other one?
Instagram, Snapchat?
Instagram. I have Instagram. I haven't used it yet, but I'm sure the longer we do this podcast, I'll probably learn how to do it. But how about some things that we want to kind of lay out to people, what we're going to be talking about on the podcast as we do more and more of these, and we get kind of more in the groove of doing these podcasts. What are some of the topics that you'd like to see us talk about and cover as we go?
I mean, just giving the background of, what can cause a thyroid issue. There's multiple different levels that the dysfunction can happen at. So kind of clearing, because a lot of people just think it's a gland problem. Like, oh, my thyroid is just not making the hormone, so that's why I need to have Synthroid or levothyroxine to replace it. Well, sometimes it can go beyond the gland. So just focusing on what are the different types of thyroid problems people can have, maybe explaining what some of the labs actually mean to people, specifically looking at what TSH, T4, T3 actually mean, distinguishing between a thyroid issue and maybe an autoimmune issue and how they may be approached differently.
Right.
And then, what other...
I think one of the big things that I want to make sure that we cover, and help people understand is that you can definitely have hypothyroid symptoms and have a normally functioning gland. Thyroid symptoms are not the result of a glandular dysfunction necessarily, because you can have your gland removed, take thyroid hormone, and have no symptoms, right? So thyroid symptoms, and this is really important for everybody that's listening or watching, is that thyroid symptoms occur because there's insufficient thyroid hormone getting into the peripheral tissues. And that's a thing that I talk about quite a bit on my Thyroid Thursday videos. It'll be a big focus of the Thyroid Problems Doctor website, is to make sure people understand that thyroid symptoms don't occur because the gland is necessarily bad. Thyroid symptoms occur because you're not getting sufficient thyroid hormone into your peripheral tissues. And the big mistake.
I explain to my patients that the magic doesn't happen until it gets inside the cell. And so the breakdown can happen in multiple different places, but ultimately it has to get inside the cell to be utilized, and that's where the magic happens.
Right. And so you could take plenty of T4, T3, and if you can't get it into the cellular system, you're going to have hypothyroid symptoms. And your blood work could look normal, TSH could look normal, T4 could look normal, T3 will often look lab normal, because it's not in the cell, it's in the serum. And so all the magic pretty much happens when stuff gets in cells and activates physiology within the cells. And we're going to talk about a number of factors that would prevent thyroid hormone transport, thyroid hormone conversion from active hormone which is T3, from T4, which is inactive, to active hormone, which is T3. And some of the new research is actually showing that T4 can really act as an active hormone. And there's some really interesting papers in the last year or two that says, hey, if you flood the system with T4, T4 can have an impact at the muscle, at the brain, because of the thyroid receptor alphas. The amount of those in those tissues are more conducive to use T4 at a very high level. So when the level of T4 is really high, the thyroid receptor alpha will respond to T4 as an active hormone, which is pretty interesting.
That is interesting.
Yeah, so if somebody's getting flooded with levothyroxine or Synthroid and they feel better, it may be the action of T4 to T3 conversion, or it may just be the action of T4. So interesting research, but we'll talk about it as we go. Any other topics you think would be really important to discuss in the upcoming podcasts?
Maybe some lifestyle and, diet things that people just tips, here and there that we can throw in there. That's always, people want applicable stuff that they can, do on their own. And, even if they don't have access to somebody, a doctor remotely that they can work with, that they can just kind of throw little things in there, tidbits, lifestyle, environmental stuff that can help them have a more optimal life.
Yeah, I think that's really important because I know so many patients on the feedback I get from some of the videos that the Thyroid Thursday videos that I shoot, and maybe you get some of those as well, is people are like, okay, but what do I do about it, right? Yep. So what do I do? What can I do? What can I change? And diet and lifestyle are the primary things that almost everybody can do to improve their thyroid physiology. And fortunately, they're the hardest things to change for most people, and the things they're very resistant to change. But I think it would be important for us to talk about the importance of exercise, physical fitness, the importance of diet, nutrition, and that goes beyond gluten, right? Because that's a big thing in the functional medicine world, is you just need to be gluten-free. If I'm gluten-free, then my thyroid physiology should work, because if I have Hashimoto's. But it really does go beyond that. We need to talk about how important sleep is and quality of sleep. That's really important. We'll probably need to talk about breathing and respiration, because respiration and breathing plays a huge role in optimal thyroid physiology. So we should, and I think we will, talk about so many of the lifestyle factors that people could change that really will help them as they try and help themselves, because it's not all about thyroid hormone pills. It's not all about supplements. And even though we recommend specific supplements to help somebody heal and improve, we need to give them the things that they don't need anybody else to help them have or do to improve health and well-being.
Absolutely.
I think another thing that we probably need to discuss and talk about is GI health and the gut biome, and the critical role that gut health plays in thyroid physiology, and especially in autoimmunity, like having like Hashimoto's or Graves' disease. I think it's a very important point that's missed. As you and I have talked before, there's something that we can talk about as well on the podcast called the cell danger response. Cell danger response, one of the things that activates the cell danger response is infection. And so the thyroid gland is unique in the fact of its lymph, the lymph tract going directly to the thyroid gland. And so if there's infection, organisms from the gut have almost direct access to the thyroid gland to stimulate an immune response. And what's interesting, and one of the things we'll have to talk about is that the thyroid gland and the thyroid cells themselves have a uniqueness in the fact that they can mount an immune response without the immune system. And so you don't have to the thyroid gland doesn't have to rely on the immune system to have an immune response. It can do it, just the thyroid cells themselves can mount this immune response, which is pretty neat and crazy and kind of like, oh man. But gut role and gut health plays a big role, especially what's going on from a dysbiosis standpoint.
Absolutely, and it plays off each other. So if you have low hormone, you're going to get leaky gut, and then that leaky gut can then make your thyroid not work, and it becomes this vicious cycle that keeps going around and around.
Yeah, and I think that's the key, and I think that's one of the reasons why, and I know I talk about this with my patients, and I'm sure you do with yours, is that when they come to see a functional medicine doctor, they come to see you or they come to see me, that it's really important that they give us their history and their timeline. I know a number of patients just say, well, I started getting hypothyroid, I don't know, 5 years ago, and they want to tell you the story from the time they got hypothyroid, they got diagnosed to current. But sometimes what's even more important is what happened leading up to that, right? There's some type of stressors or a history of stressors that date back to when they were very, very young that started the process that led to their hypothyroid condition, and more than likely, if it's hypothyroid, something like Hashimoto. But it could be as early as birth. I mean, if they didn't go through the vaginal canal, they probably didn't get a good gut biome. If they weren't breastfed, they didn't get a good gut biome. If they didn't get this good establishment of gut flora, then they're susceptible to gut infections and gut dysbiosis, and that can lead to mucous membrane swelling and inflammation, and then they wind up with ear infections and other types of infections, and then they get antibiotics, which just destroys the gut biome, and it just becomes that vicious cycle, as you were saying, that then leads to these chronic health issues. And one of the systems that's most impacted by that is thyroid physiology. And they may have those hypothyroid symptoms for years before the gland actually becomes dysfunctional. And they go to their doctor and they say, I'm tired, I'm fatigued, I'm gaining weight. And the doctor just looks at them and says, you probably eat too much, you don't exercise enough, and or you're just nuts or crazy. And I see a lot of those patients come in the office. So we need to make sure that we let them know that what their experience is real. If you have hypothyroid symptoms, it's real. It just takes a doctor like Erica or myself or another functional medicine doctor to help you understand what the cause of your condition is. And if what you're experiencing is not a glandular problem, it still doesn't mean you don't have hypothyroid symptoms. It probably means you're not getting sufficient thyroid hormone into the tissues. So I went off on a long tangent there, but what else do we need to let people know about in upcoming episodes of the podcast?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've done a good job. We've got a lot of topics to cover.
Great. So I think for this episode, I think the first episode that we've done is really just a good introduction of what people can look forward to. I would encourage anybody who starts to watch the videos or listen to the videos, if you have questions, please put your comments or questions underneath the video where you're watching them, whether it's on my Thyroid Problems Doctor website, if it's on my Facebook page, if it's on Dr. Riggleman's pages. Put your questions there. We want to answer as many of the questions as you have. We love geeking out about thyroid physiology, but it's really only beneficial if we're answering the questions that you, the public, have. And that's really what the main goal is. We want to help people improve their thyroid physiology and regain their health and their quality of life without having to go on thyroid medications if they don't have to.
Absolutely. And then if somebody knows somebody that's been that classic thyroid patient that's struggled, that knows they have a thyroid problem but nobody can diagnose it, share this with them. Point them in the right direction. Tell them to watch our videos. And maybe this will give them a little insight or even give them hope so that they can get help.
Yeah, I think one of the things that's really important too is so many people don't think they can recover from a thyroid condition. Like they're doomed to be tired and fatigued and there's nothing you can do because I'm already taking thyroid hormone. I can tell you firsthand, I feel well, I function well, and yet I have Hashimoto's. I'm not on thyroid hormone, and I live a pretty good life. I'm living a blessed life. And so you can be healthy, you can be well. I know I've taken a number of our thyroid patients, people that come to see me for thyroid conditions from all over the country and outside the country, and have been able to help them either totally reduce their thyroid hormone, to either totally get off of it or significantly reduce the dose. That doesn't mean that everybody is going to be able to be thyroid hormone free. If you've had significant destruction of the thyroid gland, you may still need some level of thyroid hormone. I think that's important to know. But you may, if you can get your physiology right, you may need very much less thyroid hormone to maintain a state of health.
Absolutely.
So I think we've covered quite a bit in the first podcast. So I think we sign off today.
Yes.
We get a plan, and our goal is to probably put out at least one or two podcasts a month would be the goal, I think, at this point.
Absolutely.
And if we get more and more questions, then we'll do more and more podcasts. So if you have questions, if you have concerns, you have things you need answered, please put them below wherever you watch this podcast or listen to this podcast or video. My name is Dr. Eric Balcavage. My website is thyroidproblemsdoctor.com or chronicconditionrecoverycenter.com. You can find me on Facebook, maybe on Twitter, and maybe on, I forget what the other one is. But
Snapchat.
Not Snapchat. What's the other one?
Instagram.
I'll be on Instagram soon. This is Dr. Erica Riggleman. And Erica, tell them where they can find you again.
You can find me at Brain and Body Health Center on Facebook. You can email us at brainandbodyhealthcenter@gmail.com. And then Instagram is Dr. Evan and Erica, and just that minus the Riggleman part. And we are on Twitter, I think, at the Riggleman Doctors. If you just search Dr. Riggleman, it will pop up there on Instagram as well. So, yeah.
Awesome. All right, Dr. Erica, good talking to you again. And for everybody, the first one, thank you for listening, and tell your friends and family, and hopefully we can grow this podcast to a significant level. Thank you.
Yep.